In Ghana Armed Forces to resume recruitment screening on November 20 after the deadly stampede. Meanwhile, the entire Greater Accra recruitment team has been replaced. We'll get the details in the bulletin. Also, coming up, over 1,500 Ghanaian applicants caught using fraudulent documents for UK visas in 2024 as Australia, Canada and the UK launch joint campaign to tackle rising visa fraud. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Please stay with us. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us on our social media platforms. You can leave a comment there and we'll be glad to share them with the rest of the world. Let's begin the bulletin from here, shall we? The Ghana Armed Forces says the suspended 2025-2026 recruitment screening exercise in the Greater Accra region will resume this Thursday, November 20. The exercise was halted last week after a deadly stampede that claimed several lives. This time, the Ghana Armed Forces is rolling out new safety measures to prevent overcrowding, and the screening will no longer be done at a single point. Instead, it has been expanded to 8 sub-centers across 5 military locations, and they include 2 centers at the Elwak Stadium, 2 at Nicholson Park in Burma Camp, the Air Force Base also in Burma Camp, 2 centers at Tradok in Teshi, and the Eastern Naval Command in Tema. Qualified applicants will be processed in batches of 600. Each person will receive an SMS with details of their reporting date, batch number, and designated center. The Armed Forces is encouraging applicants to also keep checking the recruitment portal for updates. Now, those who do not receive a text message by Thursday are being asked to call the Ghana Armed Forces helpline on 0256 405 104. I'll take the number again, 0256 405 104, or send a WhatsApp message to 0256 405 154. A WhatsApp message to 0256 405 154 for assistance. The military is also stressing that friends and relatives will not be allowed into any of the screening centers to avoid congestion. Meanwhile, the Board of Inquiry is investigating the tragic stampede. As part of efforts to ensure transparency, the entire Greater Accra recruitment team has been replaced. New directors have taken over key roles, including Commodore F.A. Nyako, who now heads human resource. The Ghana Armed Forces has expressed deep regret over the incident and extended condolences to the bereaved families. It says all injured applicants will continue to receive free medical treatment at the 37 military hospital until they recover. Let's have a conversation on the back of this and speak with Dr. Emmanuel Adu. He is a security analyst on the latest interventions from the Ghana Armed Forces. Doc, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start from this. A new approach that the military is adopting. But first, the replacement of the entire security architecture, those who oversaw the recruitment last week, has been changed. What do you make of this?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Crosby. You're talking about the change. Now, this particular type of approach is known in security sector, that when there are problems, individuals are usually held accountable. But very often the problem transcends an individual. It's an institutional problem. And so I hope that this symbolic gesture is just a starting point, but hopefully it will not be like an episodic knee-jerk one-off intervention, because I'm very sure that giving my friends in the security sector is getting close to 30 years, and repeating myself very often, when you have problems within the security agencies, individuals are held accountable. So, for example, there's something we call the rotten apples in a clean barrel. In other words, the institution, which is the barrel, is clean, and there are some few rotten apples, incompetent people or maybe corrupted people or people who have not done what they are supposed to do. But very often that narrative does not stand even the minimum scrutiny. Usually it is a systemic and institutional challenge. My central point is this, that yes, this symbolic message is part of maybe giving people that the impression that something is being done. But we shouldn't stop there. We should look at the challenge from an institutional perspective and try to reform it from that standpoint.
You mentioned that it may not be entirely an individual problem and a systemic challenge. So based on that, what systemic failures, either in planning, communication, or security coordination, likely contributed to last week's deadly stampede? And the new interventions that the armed forces is introducing, will these be able to reduce the systemic challenges we saw last week?
Okay, now when you use systemic challenge and you don't filter the word and you leave it unfiltered, you might have, you will open up yourself for undue criticism. I'm talking to myself now and to you as well. In other words, when I say systemic, I do mean systemic in terms of recruitment, because if I'm using the word systemic in terms of recruitment, it means that the problem of death has occurred again and again and again. When I say systemic, I filter it in this instance. I limit it in this instance to mean that the institutional reform of the armed forces go beyond this particular incident. So if you want to deal with the problem, it might be deep-seated, it might be broad, it might cut across different levels. So this is an opportunity for broader reform, not only with recruitment. No, what are the challenges of the armed forces? How do we deal with the issues in the short term, the medium term, and the long term? If you take the Peto report, which I think was in the 80s, if you read that report, you cry because of the state of despondency of the armed forces, particularly, the only exception was Recce. Most of the institutions even didn't have functioning radios. What is the relationship here? The relationship is that scandals or such problems offer opportunity for broader institutional reform. And I think that we shouldn't just limit ourselves. And that is my fear, that we are focusing too much on this tiny bit of the bigger problem. We should look at our armed forces and look at our national security strategy. We have a national security strategy that will be very soon reviewed. We should look at the broader national security strategy and look at the role of the military, the armed forces in furthering that agenda. And then when we look at that correlation, we can say that, okay, this is what the Navy needs. This is what the Air Force needs. This is what the Army needs. This is what this unit needs. I think that if you look at it broadly, this particular problem would then be a trigger for a broader reform. Other than that, we will limit ourselves to recruitment, and then there'll be another problem somewhere. For example, if there's a terrorist attack and our people are not well equipped and they cannot fight, then we'll go back and say that these number of troops were killed because they didn't have enough logistics, and then we go and deal with it like firefighting. Of course, fire people will not like me saying that.
Right.
We'll go and deal with it from that perspective. I think we should look at it more broadly.
And finally, Doc, so what would be your expectations of the committee investigating the incident?
Before I come to the committee, just a quick one. From the press release, a number of things are out in there that I think are very nice. If you look at it from thematic analysis, so to speak, they talked about breaking the bulk, which is a good thing. They talked about leveraging technology, the portal, the WhatsApp, the online, the SMS, which is a good thing. They also talked about, there are certain number people can call for explanation and for directive, which is very important in building legitimacy. The last thing that I thought they did was trying to give us, that's where your question comes in, the inquiry. And I think the inquiry is very important. But you see, they can have an in-house inquiry. But one way of building legitimacy, which in criminology means trust and confidence generally, is to have an independent body that will investigate. Some of the findings might be difficult. Some of the findings might be embarrassing.
Right.
But that is how we build. And the last point is this. You had mentioned the phone numbers, and that is why I end. The media is a critical part of any security apparatus. The media. In terms of your oversight, in terms of you transmitting information. So you've repeated the numbers, you've emphasized where the people are going, and that is the central point I'm trying to make, that the armed forces should see the media as a critical player and try to engage with them instead of having challenges with them. And the media should also see the security as a friend. And I think that if you're able to bridge that gap, if the relationship is more healthy than strained, it helps us in dealing with such problems, because you can then take the information, spread it out, educate people, and prevent some of the problems you see, because these were preventable deaths, I think.
Doc, thank you so much for your insights. Dr. Emmanuel Adu, security analyst, speaking with us there. Now, over 8,500 visa applicants used fraudulent means to apply for visas to the UK in 2024. The numbers, according to the UK High Commissioner, reveals a growing threat requiring urgent fixing. And the development has prompted the High Commissions of Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom to embark on a week-long sensitization and education campaign to help tackle the challenge. The three commissions, in a joint statement, reiterated their commitment to protecting genuine applicants and ensuring that visa processes remain transparent. And here is the UK High Commissioner, Dr. Christian Rogg, what he had to say on the numbers. You can join us on our social media pages on Facebook, and then you see exactly what he said. So this is from the British High Commissioner to Ghana, Dr. Christian Rogg. He says in 2024, 1,632 applicants from Ghana used fraudulent means when applying for UK visas. While that represents only 4% of all Ghanaian applicants, it is still far too many. Too many people misled by agents into taking an action that resulted in a 10-year visa ban. Fraud is never worth the risk. That's according to the UK High Commissioner to Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Christian Rogg. That's it from him. So this is what we know concerning the latest development with regards to the High Commissions in UK, in Australia and Canada, prompting them to embark on a week-long sensitization and education campaign to help tackle the challenge. We'll be having a conversation on the back of this and speak with some fraud and security consultants in relation to the conversation. But in the meantime, while we will try to work the lines to engage with the fraud consultant, the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly has today embarked on a major decongestion exercise in Tamale Central Business District to ease traffic congestion and restore order in the area. This comes less than 24 hours after TV3 aired a story about a failed attempt at decongesting the city in July this year. Unauthorized lorry parks and stations as well as trading activities were brought to a halt following the second decongestion exercise. And the exercise, which is the second in 5 months, it started as early as 6 a.m. with a joint task force comprising military and police personnel, city guards, and traditional leaders, as well as assembly staff. Major affected areas include the Central Market, Abuabo as well, and the main taxi station. They were all affected by this exercise. My colleague Christopher Amwako, he followed the team, and he will join us shortly with some more updates in relation to this exercise. But here are some of the traders speaking.
Our problem is when you are in Tamale, may you come to Tamale, sit nearby the youth so that you and the youth can talk. I say not when I'm talking. They say Tamale chup, but not the Tamale food dealers or the market sellers. I can assure you, you take from Azoka Place to MTN office, that is the road one double road. But the way they are building in the petrol station, it can never do that. And the many people follow them, but they will not see. And then secondly, when you come to the STC yard there, before car will from STC yard come out, people will stand there more than 30 minutes before the car enter or the car come out before people can go. You understand? Now, Tama is growing. Many cars are enter. People they down. But I don't know why. Always when they come, they say market sellers. And the presenters in Tamale too. They don't learn their things. They don't call the million and ask them, oh, million, where are you going to find prepare distance? Please to the market sellers so that you will push them go there. And then their town to be free. They can't do that. They always sitting on the radio and then TV stations say that they to sack market dealer, the market dealer. Where are you a chief and you don't want people? When you sack people to go out, they should go and chop what? You see, great people and find when you see Tamale here the road all Tamale station, Accra station, Kumasi station, they are all stand on the way. why not you should find a place and send them to there. If you send nearest station to another place, people will follow them to go, because what we are selling is a high things. If you are high no point at watching, you can't buy.
And those are the sounds of some traders affected by the ongoing exercise in the Tamale metropolis there. Let's now take a listen to some of the people in authority who are undertaking the exercise on what they make of the cries by the traders.
Very consistent in the point that whether or not alternative is provided, it's wrong for anybody to trade in the street. It's wrong for anybody to trade in the walkways, the pedestrian walkways. Whether or not we find them space, it's wrong for them to trade in the space that we have earmarked, because they are supposed to be pedestrian walkways. They are also supposed to be bicycle lanes. Those other places we named in our correspondence, the overpass, under the overpass, all those ones are forbidden. So it's a different ball game altogether, talking about alternatives. And that's how come we indicate in our communication that there is a complaint desk at the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly. The Crime Service Unit is functional. So anybody with any complaint, reasonable enough to engage us, it is welcome.
That's the voice of some of the assembly members involved in the ongoing decongestion exercise in the Tamale metropolis there. Let's go back to an earlier story, and this is in relation to the over 1,500 visa applications and applicants using fraudulent means to apply for visas in the UK in 2024. And the numbers, according to the UK High Commission, reveals a growing threat requiring urgent fixing. Although the authorities say that it represents only 4% of applicants, that number is still very high. And as such, the Commissions of Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom have together begun a week-long sensitization and education campaign to help tackle the challenge. They, in a joint statement, they reiterated their commitment to protecting genuine applicants and ensuring that visa processes remain transparent. Richard Kumado is a fraud and a security consultant joining us. Mr. Kumado, good afternoon to you. Thank you. What typically drives applicants to rely on fraudulent agents or documents during visa applications, and how does that ecosystem of fraudulent application using fraudulent document, how does it operate in Ghana?
I've been part of some agencies that does background checks or investigations for some of the embassies. I'm aware of some of the guys, the nature of investigations they have done over the years and in recent times. People are desperate. People are also naive, and they don't know they can apply for some of these visas naturally by themselves. And there are also the other side of the coin where you have agencies that facilitate some of these applications for some of these people. Some of these agencies might use various documentations and various programs for the visa applications. Some even have connections in almost all our governments. And for that matter, they use international programs and lie to people and collect huge sums of money from them. And to the extent that the embassies themselves also have accountability regime where people come to audit and find out how many people have you received a visa and what are the reasons assigned and what are the implications. The agency have realized that the numbers have gone up. So we also have a wet cap in particularly coming in the U.S., and this agency wants to take advantage to raise awareness. And it's good they are raising the awareness by this time. But if you ask me, basically the baseline is that people want to travel at all costs. People are naive about it. People just don't know what to do. And some other people who have found capability are taking advantage of them to dupe them and to dupe the embassies as well. It is also important to say that the way these things work is so presupposes that there might be people who work with some of these agencies within the embassies.
So it's an entire ecosystem, and to have the High Commission come out to speak about these numbers is suggesting that we really have a problem on our hands. 1,500, that's just for the UK. The Canada, Australia, they have not mentioned the numbers, but if we're looking at these numbers, it reflects a systemic gap that is enabling the high numbers. What are the systemic gaps enabling such high numbers?
One, visa application itself will have to be reviewed. The process look a little bit frightening and complex sometimes. The embassies and the high commissions also have a responsibility towards their clients because they collect visa fees and they benefit from that. So this 4%, if you quantify it in terms of money they have collected before they refuse them, these monies are huge. So they also have a responsibility and a duty of care to educate the general public. But the gap is that people have to be educated, awareness has to be created, and people will have to be aware for using fraudulent.
Mr. Kumado, unfortunately, we're losing you. If you could adjust your position so we can continue with the conversation.
Now.
Yes, it's better now, but you were making a point. Please continue.
Saying is that
unfortunately, Mr. Kumado, we're still going back to the challenge. If you're still with the line, we can try one final time, sir. And unfortunately, we lost Richard Kumado, but I'm sure he made his point, a fraud and security consultant, talking about the systemic challenge that is facilitating this and how much of a concern it is to the foreign affairs ministries in the country amongst other stakeholders we have. But this is still Midday on 3FM 92.7, the Midday Bulletin on 3FM 92.7, also live on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. We're going for a break. When we come back, we'll delve into other matters this afternoon. Don't go far.
92.7 3 FM.
Hello, Ghana. It's a new year.
.7 3 FM. .7 3 FM. 92.7 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 3 FM.
Welcome back to the Bulletin. Let's bring you some other stories this afternoon. And the Ministry of Labour, Jobs and Employment has established a Health and Safety Enforcement and Compliance Special Task Force to strengthen the oversight of workplace standards in the Ashanti region. The task force, initiated by Sector Minister Dr. Rashid Pelpul, aims to support the Factory Inspectorate Agency in ensuring employers fully adhere to health and safety laws. Dr. Pelpul stated that the law requires employers in both the public and private sectors to provide safe working conditions and protect workers' health.
It comes into finance. There's something financing that has to be considered. In other words, there's a financial burden on each employer to register their companies and for inspections to be taking place on yearly basis to make sure the conditions are all into the expected standards. Now, having observed that, I realized that we have a huge country. I made a visit to the office and realized that the workforce there is very small, very, very insignificant. They can't even cover the rest of Accra. So there was a need for us to have a task force that would deal with this issue. And that's why the task force came into place. And for us to make sure we carry the letter, the law to the letter, and make sure Ghanaian workers all over the country are safe in accordance with the practical reality of the legal regime go round. There are some key issues that happen. that are brought up. In many of them, you find electricity cables hanging around, very dangerous, open wires that would, shock anybody. And sometimes the workers are treated very unfair. And we can't be in this country for workers to be treated the way they are treated. And several other issues, like even the sheds under which they work. When it rains, some of them suffer from, they suffer under it, under the tragedy of the weather.
And that's the employment minister speaking there. Away from that to some other stories, ranking member on the Local Government and Decentralization Committee of Parliament, Francis Asansubochi, is calling for urgent action on the provision of district-level housing facilities to attract essential human resources to underserved communities across Ghana. And Ghana continues to struggle with attracting and retaining qualified healthcare professionals, engineers, and teachers in hard-to-reach districts. Over the years, one of the most cited constraints has been the lack of decent accommodation in these areas, a challenge that has contributed significantly to staffing shortages in key sectors. Well, providing context to the issue, Francis Asansubochi, who previously served as Minister for Works and Housing, said the government must revisit the district housing scheme designed during his tenure, noting that it was developed precisely to address the accommodation gap at the local level.
Had a very interesting and insightful presentation and discussion. There's one thing that I want to stress on is having the right requisite human resource for effective decentralization. The minister mentioned that you only have 10 special planners. How do you ensure that there is orderly development in our country if you don't have the special planners at the district level? I dare say that it may be even worse for architects and engineers. The primary reason that we don't have this human resource at the district level, one of them is accommodation. They don't have a good place to stay. They finish university with their colleagues, some get good places in Accra, but when they decide to go to district, they don't have any places, so they don't go. It's not only limited with architects, not only limited to planners, it's for all professionals. And that is why the health minister was complaining that we don't have health professionals, doctors in the less endowed districts.
Francis Asansubochi speaking there. Now, before we go this afternoon, President John Dramani Mahama is set to swear in Justice Paul Bafuboni as Chief Justice today after Parliament gave him majority approval on Thursday. Paul Bafuboni became acting Chief Justice in the month of April after the suspension of Justice Gertrude Tokonu, who is still litigating her removal as the head of the judiciary. And over 6-hour vetting at the Appointment Committee of Parliament gave Bafuboni 163 majority votes as against 69 from the minority NPP, who voted en bloc against the president's nominee. And President Mahama will this afternoon at 3 p.m. swear him in as Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Well, the Ghana Police Service is also speaking this afternoon in a latest release from the police service. The service says that the Inspector General of Police has directed the release of the Queen Mother of Cole following an operation by some officers this morning. The IGP has further directed the Police Professional Standards Bureau to conduct investigation into the circumstances surrounding the operation, and any officers or officer found culpable will be duly sanctioned, according to the statement from the IGP. Meanwhile, security has been intensified in and around Cole to ensure the security and safety of all persons in the area. That's it for the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. There's more news on our website, 3news.com. My name is Noble Crosby, and business news is up next. Have a great afternoon.